Hi, I'm Alex Pattle, combat sports correspondent at The Independent, and we ask for your questions on Anthony Joshua's fight with Jermaine Franklin. So, let's see what you asked. First up from Philip, all due respect to Jermaine Franklin, and I hope he proves me wrong, but except for hardcore boxing fans, has anyone heard of him? This is hard tune-up fight energy. I think it's okay to acknowledge that this is a tune-up fight. I mean, for the first time in his career, Anthony Joshua has lost 2 fights in a row and he's in desperate need of a win. So he needs a win to rebuild his reputation, perhaps to rebuild his confidence, and given he's in such desperate need of a win, I think it should tell you everything you need to know about what Joshua's matchmakers think of Franklin, that he's the guy they've put in front of Joshua. It's not meant as disrespect from our side towards Franklin, but obviously he's seen as a beatable opponent and a significant step down in competition from Alexander Usyk. A lot of fighters would be. But also it's okay to acknowledge that he doesn't have the biggest profile here in the UK. He's American, he's 29 years old, he'd never fought in the UK before November when he lost a narrow decision to Dillian Whyte in London. That was by far the biggest fight of his career and the first defeat of his career. But as I said, very, very closely fought, and a lot of people felt that he did enough to win. He showed great speed and movement for his size in that fight, good stamina, a decent chin. So does it matter that not a lot of people know who he is? It might have some effect on ticket sales, on streaming numbers, but if Jermaine Franklin wins on Saturday night, then everyone will know what his name is. Joel asks, how do you change your approach after the previous 2 fights and some time off? So it's widely deemed that Joshua kind of needs to get back to his old front foot, so-called seek and destroy style, being aggressive. That's more easily said than done. It was certainly more easily said than done against Usyk, who is not just a southpaw, but an elite southpaw at that. So that stance meant it was harder for Joshua to land the shots that he's used to landing. Usyk was often just out of range, and defensively as well, Joshua was having to work against entries and angles that he wasn't particularly used to. And Usyk's just a particularly inventive boxer. He's good at improvising when he needs to. One of the reasons Franklin was chosen as an opponent for Joshua, according to Eddie Hearn, Joshua's promoter, is that he's an orthodox fighter. He fights out of an orthodox stance. The shots that Joshua is used to throwing, used to landing, should be there for him on Saturday. If he gets it right, if he puts it all together, then he might just get the knockout that he's needed for a little while now as well. Patrick's asking if many heavyweights bounce back from Joshua's current position to become world champion again, or has he peaked in his career? I think there are a few examples I could give here, but maybe the best one is the most obvious and the most dramatic. In the 1990s, George Foreman regained the heavyweight titles at the age of 46, which made him the oldest heavyweight champion of all time. He'd already taken 2 breaks from boxing by then. He had lost more fights than Joshua had at this point in his career, and he was 46. So while some people won't like me mentioning Foreman and Joshua in the same sentence, I'm sure, if Foreman can do that, then a fit, healthy, mentally sharp 33-year-old Joshua can probably get back to world title status. He's only ever a couple of fights away. He's a bit of a victim of circumstance right now in that the major heavyweight belts are all held by Tyson Fury and Usyk. He's lost to Usyk twice. He's failed twice to make a fight with Fury. So it might be that he needs one of those guys to retire in the next couple of years or to vacate one of those belts. But if they do, he'll be one of the first in line, Joshua, for a title shot. He just needs a couple of wins, and the first opportunity comes on Saturday against Franklin. Another question simply asks if AJ should retire if he loses this one. I think Anthony Joshua has enough money and ventures outside of the ring to do whatever he wants to do if he loses on Saturday. If that feels like a bit of a cop-out answer though, I would just say there has been talk of a potential Joshua retirement in the past. It's always felt premature to me. When he suffered his first loss in 2019, when he suffered a surprise TKO by Andy Ruiz Jr., a lot of people said that if he couldn't win the rematch 6 months later, if he couldn't regain the heavyweight titles, then maybe he should consider retiring. It was kind of a moot point because he did win against Ruiz Jr. on points, but then the same conversation arose last summer. He'd just lost to Usyk in 2021. He was again trying to regain the titles, trying to avoid back-to-back defeats, trying to avenge a loss, and he couldn't get it done. But he didn't entertain any potential retirement talk for 1 second, to be honest. This feels a bit different. I mean, 3 losses in a row would be hard to come back from, particularly with a potential 3rd loss coming against someone like Franklin, who is talented, as we've said, but is not of the stature of someone like Usyk or Joshua's other recent opponents. Thanks for all your questions. You can keep up to date with all the latest sports news on Independent Sport, and you can watch more on Independent TV. We'll see you on another edition of You Ask the Questions.